Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast with Borg, Betz, and a baller.
Welcome in, boys and girls. Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. You got Borg, Betz, and Mike.
Welcome in, everybody.
How we doing, boys?
Talking quarterbacks.
A lot of good quarterbacks in the NFL these days.
Is there?
That's what we say every July and August. And then it's week 13.
We'll find out by the end of this show.
And then it's week 13. And here comes
Max Brosmer.
Carson Beck. And who's your boy in New York, Kyle? Cade Klubnik. And maybe we'll see some Drew Aller late in the year. You know, the stars of Dynasty Leagues, they said.
I want my name attached to Cade Klubnik. I'm very happy.
Are you sure about that?
Yes, I'm very happy to throw that because...
Okay, so just real quick.
4th round pick, Cade Klubnik of the Jets.
Klubnik?
Yeah.
I feel like I've never heard it pronounced that way until this moment of my life.
So...
It's not Klubnik?
I've always done Klubnik. That's...
Oh, man.
I thought you were going to tell us the definitive answer. Like, oh, it's definitely this. You just said, this is what I do.
Well, here's what I want.
We need to get our top men on this.
Here's what I want to be able to throw out there. Also, I mean, the English language. Let's just have fun with it. Well, you can do it.
Bro, we're dealing with all of the ramifications of trying to lead the charge on the Travis Etienne Jr.
I'm happy.
Switch from Etienne.
I'm happy to do that. But what I'm...
Well, don't give me another one where it's like, is it Klubs?
There's a Clemson fan out there who is just screaming right now. They're like, how do you not know this?
Well, here's what I want to say. Here's the best part of the game that we play is that it is a very low risk and probably very low upside mark for me to just even say that I like this player and I like his opportunity with the Jets when maybe they have a different play caller week 12. It's not Frank Reich. It's things have changed.
Frank will be there, buddy. Frank is here for the long haul.
You think so?
OC of the future. I feel so bad for Frank Reich.
I believe on one of our shows I said he's an old white man with no emotion. It's not the best look.
You did say that. I think that was on DFS and betting. Yeah, what Kyle is referencing is the fact that he does not use motion in the year 2026, which the NFL passes these guys by. You know, we saw it with Doug Peterson. It kind of happened. It got stale. It was like, all right, it's time. But, you know, Frank, he's back. Went to Stanford for a year. Had some fun in college. Now he's back. So we'll see.
All right, Mike, go for it.
So Pro Football Reference, which is kind of our go-to, it's a great site. You know, there's a free shout out for them. And they often have pronunciations. They have Klubnik.
Like, find me in the club.
All caps, CLUB for the pronunciation. Klubnik.
There you go.
Klubnik. This is not...
So you've been out here proliferating Klubnik. You got Betz all screwed up.
I feel fine.
Lord,
I trusted Kyle. He's down in the South. He supposedly...
I would have trusted him immediately.
He supposedly knows what's happening in ACC and SEC country.
This is the problem, though, in how we function, that you've gotten to the point, Mike, where you trust me a little too much.
No, we are fully Ron Burgundy. If Kyle wrote it in the doc, I'm gonna read it.
I definitely have it, and we'll see if this happens. I plan to in the doc a place where Andy's listing off a bunch of wide receivers for the Giants because there's like 100 of them. One of them it says Kathy Bates in there. I just want to see if he reads it off.
That's gonna be amazing.
So we'll find out later on this week if one of those podcasts.
All right, that's a fun game.
Yeah,
dude, that was one of my favorite mistakes I've ever made at work. Is when I put in the show doc last year for Rachaad White. I messed it up, and that's where Dick White came from.
When you called him Richard.
I put Richard in the doc by accident, and Andy just read it. He just read it right off the screen. I listened back, and I was like, oh, no. Went back into the show doc, and I saw it. I was like, oh, geez, I'm an idiot. But now we have a brand new nickname on the show, and you're welcome.
He will read anything, and I mean anything, on that teleprompter. So it is a really fun part of our show that there's trust. There's years of trust built, and we could tear it all down.
I mean, it's a little bit. It's lowered.
Okay.
With this Klubnik gate.
It's probably in the right spot. We will talk quarterbacks. We'll talk dynasty tiers. It'll be interesting, too, because we know the 2027 class of quarterbacks is supposedly very, very strong. Right now, I am seeing 6 in the top 14 right now in current mock drafts. It's very early, but that is a healthy number that we get to add into the mix. We're not going to really speculate about those guys, but quarterbacks hold their value because they're pretty stable year to year in what we can project for certain players. The mobile guys, guess what? They run, and they're the dudes that score points. So we can kind of figure out, like, at the quarterback position, not a ton changes year to year. You can have players that tier jump. We'll talk about Drake Maye, who's kind of in this spot now where it's like, if you want to take him after Josh Allen in a super flex,
react.
Yeah, that thing shift. But then there's other guys in this middling area that I think we don't really know what to do with. I think that'll be some of the more interesting conversations when we get to like QB 10, QB 15. That's like, okay, how do I value these guys in a super flex? Is this guy really a quarterback one? Like, he doesn't feel like it week to week, but you have cheaper guys like Dak, who is a quarterback one, and nobody respects him in Dynasty at all.
You know who respects him now? Jim Bros. Have you seen
the guns.
Dak? Holy
No, I haven't
Lord.
seen this.
Oh,
I'm logged
bro.
off, so I'm not helpful.
Dude, you thought Zamir White had sweet biceps?
Dude,
Take a look at Dak.
Dak's off-season program has consisted of curls, hammer curls, preacher curls, isolated curl hold. Dude, the man is yoked out of his mind right now. At least the way that these couple pictures have looked.
Did you adjust the ranks?
No, because I don't have to move Dak up, because I love Dak forever.
You've held strong for a long time, and I feel like maybe we've said the same thing on this podcast every single year when we do this quarterback tiers episode of like, well, nobody really wants him. He's a really strong back in QB1, but nobody ranks him there.
It's wild of the Cowboys and their fandom. I mean, I got the zoom out is, you haven't won, like, you haven't made any noise in the playoffs in what's like 30 years or something. I mean, it's been a long
like
time.
The 90s.
It's been a rough run there, but it's not the quarterback's fault. Other than the Romo botched a hold. I get it, but Romo right into Dak Prescott, like these are two guys who just seem to be undervalued constantly by fandom, by fantasy football. So I'll stand up for him.
And now he's got the biceps to go with it. So I mean,
yeah, he does.
Come on. Dude, Dak is the perfect quarterback 2 in Superflex.
Oh, yeah.
Won't cost quarterback 1 prices. He's, air quotes, old. But, I mean, he's going to keep doing this for another few years, and he just keeps producing. So I love it, especially with George Pickens there. And we think, I mean, we'll see. We think George is hopefully sticking around beyond this year. That would be amazing. I think he's a perfect quarterback 2 this year for your Superflex team.
If you want to find all the projections that we have for players like Dak Prescott, you can find them in the Ultimate Draft Kit, ultimatedraftkit.com. We just added a brand new feature over the last couple of weeks, the mock draft tool. If you want to mock draft against your league mates, you want to kind of see where players go in redraft, you can do that. You also can get the Dynasty Pass as part of that, where you can see all of Mike's startup rankings, which we will refer to on this episode. So ultimatedraftkit.com. But let's talk quarterback.
Dynasty rankings.
So this is
sounded like you said, let's talk quarterback.
Let's talk.
Was there an S on there?
I think I threw that in, but you know what? Who knows?
You're super flustered
Let's
now.
just talk about one quarterback. And that quarterback, let's talk about this guy who's on your taxi squad. I realize this is the 3rd episode we've done about tiers. And at quarterback, I felt the most comfortable putting our rankings into tiers, especially if you're in a super flex draft where we kind of constantly preach like everybody else reaches for this position. And you can kind of see the way that our rankings work, that everybody is tiered out. I know, Mike, you've had this approach in your rankings for a long time for super flex. Like, hey, I'm not just going to take this quarterback because I'm supposed to. And so players are kind of pushed out in the rankings. It was like, hey, this guy's more of like a round 2 pick as opposed to early round 1. And I feel like in Dynasty, that's really needed, or else people just end up taking the position because they're supposed to.
Yep. I think you can build a stronger team focusing on some other guys and finding these quarterbacks who just aren't as appreciated. But I will let you begin, Kyle.
Yeah. Before we get into the first tier, which, spoiler alert, there's only one dude in that first tier. And I feel really good about calling it the Josh freaking Allen tier.
There's honestly, there's one conversation about Josh Allen for me is how long does it last?
I literally said a day is coming, but it's not today.
Nope. And so that's the only bets or hedging you have to make on Josh Allen are how long do you think it will last? And I've done some study stuff of guys who run and who are real prolific mobile quarterbacks and at what point those numbers fall off. And Josh Allen what year are we in, Josh Allen?
He came in the league.
He's 30 years old.
But what season are we in? So he was drafted in 18.
Yes.
So he's going into season 9. And this is when I was looking at it, because the whole reason I did it in the first place was because I wanted to look at Cam Newton this Cam Newton's a freaking superhero, but the end will come. And when did it come for his predecessors? And it's right about this time. Now, Josh Allen seems different to me than Cam Newton. I know Cam had really prolific passing years, especially earlier on in his career, where the numbers for Allen passing wise have been way down. We haven't seen him throw for, goodness, over the last 2 years, it's 3,700 and then 3,600 essentially. So we haven't seen a big boy passing year since 2023. But I think for Josh Allen, even when the rushing subsides a little bit, number one, the rushing touchdown upside will always be there for Josh Allen. Maybe your total yardage comes down to a place where we want more, but then once he has to switch to being just a quarterback who can move around and break tackles and then get it done through the air, I think he'll be more than capable.
Yeah, on Cam Newton too, real quick, the thing that I think also really kind of made his decline happen a lot faster, he had that shoulder injury a little bit later in his career, and then he also had a foot injury that I'm not sure how much of that played into his decline. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting in Buffalo, with the skill group that he's had, it's truly remarkable how good Josh Allen is. Since Steph Diggs left, they've taken a quantity over quality approach at pass catcher and are just rotating guys in there. And Tyrell Shavers, why not? Brandon Cooks, come on down. And they're competing to the wire in playoff games with this crew, which is perhaps just so egregious that maybe, I hope we do, but there's a world that exists where Josh Allen never wins a Super Bowl, and it's so sad to think about that. But as far as fantasy and dynasty outlook, I agree. The only question is do you ever get to a point in the next 2, maybe 3 years where you say okay, I want to cash in? But if you don't like doing that, you just want to ride it out with one of the best players of the last decade, that's cool too. So it's just a matter of personal preference on risk there. Yeah,
and to put a cherry on top, the greatest fantasy quarterback of all time. That's where I think we're headed. That's where you can say he has the most rushing touchdowns ever for a quarterback. And then you think about the run that he's been on over the last 6 years. It's truly remarkable. The biggest change last year was a lot of short stuff. 21% of his attempts were behind the line of scrimmage. That was the highest of his career. And this team is just so good at running the ball that you kind of just understand why they do what they do. My last question is just is Joe Brady a good play caller? Does he elevate anything? That's what we'd hope this offense does passing wise, but I just feel like we're staying status quo because we know it's the same play caller. And then other than DJ Moore, we can't really get excited about the passing options taking a step forward. So I look at his ADOT and I'm is this really going to change this year? I hope it does. I hope we get more big plays, but I'm pretty lukewarm on Joe Brady.
Joe Brady's been in charge of calling his plays for how many years?
Let's see. Ken Dorsey left.
So 23 is when Joe Brady showed up.
Yes.
So 4,300 yards that year, still 500 on the ground. I think he's probably a neutral. You could definitely have someone better, but you could also have someone worse.
Their pass
there
rate
are definitely worse.
Gone down every single year in Joe Brady's system. Their pass rate over expectation, their no huddle rate. It's all the stuff that we would normally say I don't like that for a play caller. And yet Josh Allen kind of just overcomes it. You mentioned it, Betz. It doesn't really matter. He can continue to have Tyrell Shavers or the ghost of Joshua Palmer or Keon Coleman. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah. I think Joe Brady's scheme, ironically, kind of like happened with Josh Allen at like a perfect time where defenses started to adjust to this like cover 2, take away the deep ball type stuff. And Joe Brady was like, sweet, that's what I do anyway. So let's just keep doing that. But so I'm interested to see like if the NFL defensive kind of norm switches, because NFL is cyclical, right? It'll change. If that starts to change in the next like 2 years, how does he adjust to that? But that's obviously a conversation for another day.
All right, let's take a quick break, and then we're going to get to Tier 2. All right, for Tier 2, I'm calling them the Super Dupers. I didn't really know a better word, but the Super Dupers is Drake Maye, Jayden Daniels, Joe Burrow, and Lamar Jackson. Do you guys feel comfortable of this 4-pack being together?
Oh, yeah.
I feel comfortable. I feel comfortable because of just where the entirety of the landscape is. I have Joe Burrow the highest of that group. I have Joe Burrow as my number 2 fantasy quarterback, as I believe that what he does with what he's surrounded with, for the foreseeable future in his pass catchers keeps him up there. Like Drake's the hardest one of what do you do with a guy who's not even 24 yet and then was in the MVP conversation in year 2 just up until the very end when Stafford stole it away. And Drake Maye didn't have a true number 1. Drake Maye wasn't in the position of, I'm going to a team that's loaded. We already have our pass catchers. They have very replaceable players that they played with last year. And now you have the addition of A.J. Brown. Like, where is this true ceiling, the true passing ceiling for Drake Maye?
You could put him at 1, like a year from now. It wouldn't shock me if Maye
he might
could be at 1. However, people will bring up the schedule, and we'll just bring up the variables of how hot he was on deep passes, which I was doing a little research for this of like which stats just aren't sticky, and deep throw success rate year to year is like super volatile in the same way we would say 50-50 balls for a wide receiver. Like 1 year it hits, 1 year it doesn't. I feel like he's due for some regression there, but the way that he runs, you're just going to continue to get a high floor. I don't think you're going to be able to repeat last year, but a 23-year-old quarterback is easily top 5, and a year from now on a startup, it wouldn't shock me if he went ahead of Allen.
Yeah, that wouldn't shock me either. I will say on Drake Maye, the only thing that I'll kind of context this around is like this year outlook versus over the next 5 years kind of thing. I think we should all expect some level of regression. How much is that? Hard to say. Like the schedule is obviously going to be a lot more difficult. You mentioned the deep ball numbers. Like he was off the charts. Him and Sam Darnold were just obliterating the league every week in those metrics. That will come down. And so just if you have some of these kind of variance, pieces that kind of fall back a little bit, you might be like, I took Drake Maye and redraft as the quarterback 2. He finishes the quarterback 6. Like, what a bummer. But obviously in Dynasty, like I feel so good about Drake Maye being locked in for the next couple of years with Josh McDaniels another year in the system, obviously getting A.J. Brown. The line is still a work in progress, but in theory should be better than it was last year. So I think good things ahead for Drake Maye, even if it is a quote-unquote regression year.
I like your aggressive rank on Burrow. I know you've always been pro Burrow, but for 2026, like we've talked about their schedule at length, that they're favored in 15 of 17. Like this could set up for one of those Burrow years where he throws for 45 and, 5,000 yards, where like it blows everybody else out of the water in a 6-point league.
That's 100% how I feel about him and the potential this year of it. It's been a frustrating career with Joe Burrow because of injuries. It's like, do you say Joe Burrow is injury prone? I don't know. Like guys get hurt in the NFL and his seem to be kind of fluky, or just really unfortunate of, that's just kind of, it happens in the game and it happened to Joe Burrow. But it's the Christian McCaffrey bet of last year. If Joe Burrow stays healthy, when he's healthy in those 16 or 17 game seasons, the dude he's 4,530 plus. That's what will happen. And then room for magic. Like I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. Like how much have we seen Joe Burrow with Jamar and T. Higgins? Like in totality of a season, you know what I mean? Ask yourself, what if T. Higgins stays healthy the whole year with Jamar? And it's like 5,000 is not impossible. 40 is not impossible. And I don't think there's any other quarterback that could come close to those types of numbers.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Burrow's set up for an unbelievable season. He's kind of one of those guys that I think we look up and, 8 weeks in, like he's going to be in the MVP conversation, the conversation to lead the league in passing, like that type of stuff. And not to get too narrative-y, but like, doesn't it kind of feel like his patience with the Bengals is starting to wane? And there was kind of some weird interviews last year and stuff like that. Like I think, and we haven't heard a thing from Joe Burrow for months now. Like he's kind of just been in the shadow. Like he kind of feels like he's going to come out and remind us of who he is this year. That's how I'm approaching it. In Superflex leagues, it's obviously very tough to acquire Joe Burrow. People have had him. They know the highs. They know Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And obviously, you're not getting Jamar Chase from anybody. But as we were talking through this, like the way that I was kind of thinking through this is like, man, if I want a piece of this offense, the guy that I feel like nobody's talking about right now is T. Higgins. And like you mentioned, Mike, it's kind of some of this, is he quote unquote injury prone? He's been frustrating guy. Like he's going to play. He has a hamstring, he's going to play. And then he's out there for like 30% of the snaps. Like we've all been there with T. Higgins, but man, the upside this year with this offense, I think it's through the roof. So I'm with you in the Burrow love.
It's shocking to me that Zach Taylor is about to enter year 8, and
it's crazy. And
year
7
with the
of
Bengals.
those years. So I mean, all 7, he has been on the hot seat.
I feel like he's not really a coach. Like he's just kind of puppeted in front of the team. Because
that's the meanest thing that we have said about any coach on any of our shows, Kyle.
He's not really a coach.
He's not.
He's just more of a
that man has a
figurehead.
family.
He's kind of there.
Let me just say that, okay,
mean.
Do you remember when we were farting around the first couple of years of the Bengals and their rush rate was like at the top of the league? It's like, this is just
Yes. And
not
we're
working.
like, unleash Burrow. What are you doing?
Like, I wonder if he had his Rodgers moment where he's just like, hey, can I just call the plays? Can I just be the dude to do it? And I'll give Dan Pitcher, I'll give their offensive coordinator more credit than Zach Taylor, which is bad.
Oh, goodness.
Because I just feel like he's getting to unleash and do what he's good at and rip it. I will find out the stat later, though, Mike, of like what percentage of Burrow games have both those players been on the field?
Of the 3?
Yeah, of the 3, all 3 of them. And then what was the production kind of rated out? But
all right, you can find that. I'll move the conversation to Jayden while you're.
Jayden and Lamar are just crazy because they both have new play callers.
And well, but here's the hard part. It's gonna sound sacrilege. I understand that. Are we 100% sure that Jayden Daniels is that guy? Because I'm saying we don't have a lot of evidence of
And
him.
by that guy, you mean?
I mean like an elite fantasy football quarterback.
Yes, I'm convinced.
Because it's like everything is there for what we want in terms of his archetype. And there was obviously the rookie year was sensational. Let me go grab that. So, 3,600, almost 3,600 yards, 25 touchdowns, and then the almost 900 rushing yards. He was not nearly as good last year. Like all numbers were down. And I know it's a shortened year. It's only a 7-game sample, and his number one weapon, Terry McLaurin, was really not there. But yards per attempt went from 6 to 4.8. Maybe over the course of a season that balances out. But I don't know. His yards per attempt went from 7.4 to 6.7. Touchdown rate was down almost a full point. Completion was down 8%. And now he's going into a brand new offensive scheme. These things get talked about a lot. We're going to play under center more, but they are. Jayden Daniels was playing in the Cliff Kingsbury. This is a college offense that generally works in the NFL, but that's not what Quinn is going to be running now. So I just bring it up of he's ranked aggressively. I have him, as number 4. But are we 100% sure? Because part of finishing this side, look, mobile quarterback is the cheat code. Yes, we need a baseline of rushing. And 900 yards is insane. But to go along with the rushing yards, you still need a healthy dose of passing to get the guys who jump into the top 3. Our numbers of when we're talking about mobile quarterbacks, we're saying, I'm getting a floor, I'm getting a top 12 guys for sure. But you still have to have really good passing numbers to make the leap to top 3. So, Kyle, you're saying no worries for you at all. The rookie, we said it. You just said it for Drake Maye. Oh, the schedule's going to get harder. That's what happened to Jayden Daniels and Washington last year.
The scramble rate is just over the top cheat code of what fantasy football is. I just until he just one day just nerfs that and ends up running at 6% of his dropbacks, then I'll figure it out. But man, he's going to continue to be 12%, which breaks fantasy. I mean, you can throw for 200 yards, and if you're running like that, you're going to be a top 5 quarterback.
I will say, though, the thing on Daniels that I don't want to say doubt, but something to consider with him for his outlook is yes, they have Terry, but Terry is not exactly in his prime anymore. And behind Terry, they basically have nothing, So if Terry goes down this year, maybe they bring back Debo, they sign Stephon Diggs or something over the next, 2 or 3 weeks. But as it stands behind Terry, it is probably the worst wide receiver room in the NFL if you take away Terry. So it's if something happens there and David Blau as a first-time play caller, I mean, we all think it's going to be great. We've seen this story before where it's oh, it actually wasn't great. There are variables here to consider from a, downside case. But at the same time, with Jayden, I do think he is that talented. And like Kyle said, the rushing obviously is going to be there. So to me, it is just that extra piece. Can we get him as a top tier passer as well with this skill group and with the new OC? That's a question mark, but the floor is intact because of the rushing. I just think the ceiling we need to make sure is still intact with the skill group that is currently there, which is not the deepest.
I did the numbers of Burrow, like you were talking about Burrow, Higgins. Basically, since Chase came in the league 2021, almost a quarter of the games, one of them has missed, and Burrow has been on the field. So it's So
it's about 75% of the time they're together?
Yeah, it's and Burrow's kind of hit or miss too. So when you start to look at the splits, it's okay, well, you're throwing out a quarter of elite production, and Burrow does have, very clear splits when Higgins is out and yardage goes down. The wide receivers can still eat, but for Burrow, that's the bigger thing is the production does go down when you're throwing to Yoshi Voss and whoever else, the tight ends. So, I'm bullish on him, on Jayden Daniels. I'm bullish on Lamar with Declan Doyle. I like both of these play callers that are being added in. Do you guys feel the same with Declan Doyle?
Yes,
I do.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that. Lamar is it's the same question as Josh Allen. Lamar's going to be turning 30 this year. His injuries have been adding up over the course of his career. How long do we have Lamar? And this isn't I'm not trying to lead into, well, the end is real soon for Lamar. It's a genuine question of he gets beat up more than someone like Josh Allen.
Yeah, just for context on that, I mean, last year we saw him come back from injury and he had a career low in rush attempts per game, 5.1, which for him, normally he's at 9, 10, 11 rush attempts per game. Had the hamstring injury, ankle, toe, a back issue. It was a kind of a rough season for him. So hopefully he's healthy and can kind of get going here again. I will say the thing on Lamar that is interesting is he kind of feels similar to Jayden Daniels in some ways from a surrounding environment standpoint. We do have a first-time play caller. We think it's going to go great. I hope it does. But again, behind Zay Flowers, you have major question marks. Mark Andrews is another year older. He's coming off back-to-back career lows in yards per out run over the last 2 years. And then, Rashad Bateman is what he is. And then Devontae Walker has done nothing in the NFL to this point. And you're counting on, I would say, some volatile rookies in Elijah Surratt and Jacoby Lane. So, if Zay goes down, question marks everywhere. And Derrick Henry is yet another year older. So I think the right tail outcomes here on this team and for Lamar are massive, but I think the floor is probably lower than maybe we realize.
That's scary to me because they've been such a consistent team for so long. You just count on Baltimore, the organization, but even the offensive line and the bit part players that are annoying to us in fantasy, but matter, Likely and Kohler on the field matter for them and what they've done for 12 personnel for so many years. or Patrick Ricard as a fullback. Like, that's part of the identity of the team.
Tyler
So they're
Linderbaum, too. He's gone.
Yeah, there's variables with this team, which I've never really thought about it because he's Lamar, but I still am putting him among this group. Like, I can't fathom, because he does what's most valuable. He runs. And then the type of attempts, 9% of his attempts last year were end zone attempts. So he's throwing to guys literally standing in the end zone 10% of the time. That's like a crazy high rate to get an outlier touchdown season, which we know Lamar can do it, right? Like, Lamar can hit 8-9%. And he's one of the few guys that you look up and you're like, that wouldn't shock me if Lamar Jackson was at 8%.
His career is a 6.5 percentile touchdown. And his rookie year was horrifically bad. He was down at 3.5%.
He's a video game character, right? Like,
yes,
this is the guy that you would take control and run around in the backfield and throw it deep. So I still have him here. Is there any worry that he could drop from this group a year from now?
Yes.
I think it's possible.
If he gets beat up again this year, the questions will start to get loud.
Okay. Yeah, it's a variable. Like, if you're looking at our rankings, those are one of the things that, like, you could put next to them. Like, I have a little spreadsheet. It's like, okay, a year from now, like, this could be dicey. And I don't want to shock us because he's Lamar Jackson and he's one of the greatest ever, but things could change. Tier 3 is fun because I'm calling it the knife fight fellas, because all the dudes in this list, you're coming to a knife fight and you're ready to fight anybody, especially on the internet, about these dudes.
Oh, okay. I had no read on where that was going to. Okay, so you're talking about the Twitter warriors.
Yeah, we've all been in a knife fight. I mean, all of us, obviously, right?
Yes.
Every day.
Okay.
Real and online.
Yes. Here are the quarterbacks that, I mean, you talk about these guys and they will ignite some fires on lines. Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Caleb Williams. Dear Lord, if I ever post anything about Caleb Williams, I get destroyed. Jackson Dart, Jalen Hurts, and Trevor Lawrence. So it's actually a pretty big tier. And all of these guys we have ranked as late first to second round picks in a super flex startup. So we're kind of have them all tiered there. But man, like, I know that I'm a Justin Herbert lifer and us Herb bros got to stick together. But
sure,
there's also a lot of people that love
because the production doesn't.
That's what I'm saying. A lot of people point out the lack of playoff wins. Caleb Williams is a polarizing dude.
Yes, and for good reason of not 25 years old yet, going. We got year 3, and everything is there. Like the Chicago Bears nucleus. You up front, like we say on this show all the time, Betz, it's so easy. It's so easy to win in the NFL. Fix your lines. Fix your offensive line, fix your defensive line, win Super Bowls. The Bears heard my advice, and they're like, oh, it's that easy? Well, let's pour a bunch of money into their offensive line. I mean, look
who could have possibly seen this coming?
Who
could have seen it coming?
Yeah, it's so easy. Then surround your quarterback with, like, upside skill position players. Check. I mean, you're starting. It's like, okay, for top 10 pick Rome, top 10 pick Loveland, early second round Luther Burden. Like, that's your nucleus. And I mean, who could forget second round DeAndre Swift, of course. But it's like, and Caleb runs. He runs and he's willing to chuck the ball down the field. Everything is there except Caleb has to get better. Which, that's one of those things over the course of the NFL. What's your bet? Do you think Caleb Williams is going to keep on improving? Of the three of us, I'm the most bullish outside of the footballers rankings. Caleb, you want to talk about who can easily jump if something happens to Lamar? Caleb could jump into that tier 2 halfway through this year.
I'm with that take. I think that's a good way to look at the upside case outcome here for Caleb. I mean, it's not hard to paint the picture, right? You just did it, Mike. It's like you get another year with Ben Johnson, and there was growing pains. Like, I think that was expected in the early part of the season. Like, you're going from, a completely different play caller to a new innovative mind. You have new weapons. It's going to take some time. And you saw the frustrations early on. Not a ton of completions, a lot of highs, but a lot of lows. But overall, like if you just kind of zoom out, it's like this guy has the weapons, the play caller, the talent, the line, and I mean the like futures markets all expect the Bears to be great this year. So what's not to love? So yeah, I think that completion percentage does go up this year. I'm buying Caleb Williams stock, and I think he will be one of those guys that we look back in 2 or 3 years and we're like, man, he really was that talented and he is this good and he has everything around him to succeed. So I think he is probably the most likely on this list from this tier to jump up a tier this time next year.
I'm looking at some of the other names. Like, depending on who you talk to, Jalen Hurts is a good elite quarterback. Depending on which Philly fan you talk to, he's either a good elite quarterback or like get him out of town.
He's a bum.
He's somewhere in between at all times.
What have you done for us lately? You know, Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah, did you win a Super Bowl this year?
All of a sudden, we're running 4 Berts and burn the city to the ground.
That's exactly what it is.
I mean, you burn the city to the ground either way.
That's true.
It's a really great policy, you know. Yeah. Just the infrastructure just gone.
Either way, destroy
every year. Yeah, just do it. I want to have a conversation about one of these names. So Mahomes, Herbert, Caleb Williams, Jaxson Dart, Jalen Hurts, Trevor Lawrence. I feel like Jaxson Dart is the one of this group that we're like, okay, we are still projecting that this is what this player will be over the coming years in fantasy. He's the youngest of this group, only 23 years old. Mike, you had a chance to hang out with him this past weekend.
I talked to the man. Before we move to Dart, I want to just quickly touch on Mahomes. I don't want to deep dive.
Okay.
Of just the difficulty that Patrick Mahomes presents, because like I think everything is still there. You know, of should the situation arise where Mahomes gets to do the Undertaker gif and return to fantasy football glory, it's all there. But is it will that be asked of him? You know what I mean? They're kind of going that. Yes, they got Rashee Rice, but you know the Chiefs and the Bills both have been going with this. Our quarterback is so good, we don't really have to have an elite playmaker at the wide receiver position. And I think it has really hurt them that they decided to not be aggressive in that. But Mahomes is at 6 for me because honestly, I don't know. I don't know which direction on the seesaw he's going to fall.
He's tricky.
This is
because he's, I mean, an alien. Like he's so yes. good from an NFL talent perspective. And last year for fantasy, he was awesome because of the rushing. And so the way that I'm kind of looking at this is like, what do I think the Chiefs offense will look like this year? And then what do I think like what's going to look like next year? Andy Reid is almost 70 years old. Like at some point, he's probably moving on sooner than later. Who knows? But he's almost 70. I think he's 68 and like he'll be 69 next spring, I believe it is. Like he's almost 70. So it's happening quicker than we'd like. And then you look at their moves, like they clearly signed Ken Walker to make him, I think, the 5th highest paid running back on average in salary. So clearly that is a huge piece of the puzzle here. He's coming off multi-ligament surgery. Like I think they're going to protect him early on. And so if you don't get the rushing and you have Travis Kelce another year older, and we still have no clue if Xavier Worthy is even good or not, and Rashee Rice can't stop doing stupid stuff, it's like this Chiefs offense could look so different in a year. So I think he's highly volatile, and I feel like his name carries a lot of weight in Dynasty.
Yes.
Which is tricky because he is that good, but do the fantasy points follow in the next couple of years? That's a question mark.
Yeah. It's like he's ranked 6. Should he be ranked 6 or should he be ranked 16? I don't know. Yeah.
I don't feel comfortable if I was in a Superflex startup to take him. I'm looking at our rankings 10th overall. I don't feel comfortable there.
I probably wouldn't.
Oh, man. What a sad world we live in.
Well, I think of the...
Look what they've done to our boy.
Our top 5 quarterbacks that we have before him. And then I think of the young wide receivers. It's like, I want to take all of those guys ahead of Mahomes. And because he carries the name value, I'll let somebody else think that they're getting a value, even in the early second. It's just not how I want to build my team on the wrong side of 30. Yeah, there's more variables at play. Do I want him on my team? Right. Sure, but I don't want to pay the cost to acquire him.
Gotcha. All right, you can move to Dart now.
All right, let's talk about Dart because it was fun. It was really fun last year. It felt like we were playing with house money last year.
Yeah, that is a very eloquent way to put it. Because I mean, there was the highs and lows. Overall, like, if you had started Dart week in and week out for fantasy, you're happy more than you're not. But that's the top level is It was fun. The Giants team last year was fun. And now they're a very different team. Are they still fun?
So we started poking holes in the offseason, just looking at the Giants, looking at the win totals. Betz, you brought it up to us earlier today, but like they're the most bet team for the over on their win totals of any team in the NFL, which smells a little fishy. The thing about...
Because they're fun.
Yes, they're super fun. And with John Harbaugh, you think, okay, here's an adult in the room.
That's not who I think of when I think of fun.
I think of an adult in the room. Oh, he can direct the fun. But the other person they added in the room was Matt Nagy, and that's a conversation.
And that's not fun.
No. He needed to bounce it out.
It's two unfun guys. You know what I mean? And that's not an attack
but Harbaugh's
on Harbaugh.
likable.
But he's no nonsense.
Harbaugh feels like a dad.
Yeah.
Like, that's how he
build
will
the
be
trenches.
Coaching.
We're going to run the football. We're going to stay ahead of the chains, keep us on schedule. And if we get to the 48, we'll punt and get field position. That's the vibes that I'm getting from the offense right now.
I don't know if it's that severe, but you think about Uncle Matt Nagy.
Oh, man.
And it's like, I don't really want him to come over to the family event. I just...
No.
It stagnates all of the stuff that Dart is best at as a passer and a runner, and they literally give a play caller, because he's calling the plays, right? It's not Harbaugh.
Yeah.
And
that's exactly... It's... here comes Coach's brother to the picnic. Matt Nagy about to ruin everything.
Yeah, Mike was doing a little deep dive about Jaxson Dart, and we were talking about how good he was when he just got to create last year when they did no huddle. The Giants actually used no huddle a lot. Fourth most in the NFL last year, 20% of their dropbacks. And when Dart used no huddle, it just skyrocketed his yards per attempt. Well, enter Matt Nagy, who basically doesn't give two farts about no huddle and doesn't really want to throw the ball. And it's scary to me because this was like Justin Fields' offensive coordinator his first year. And I think that we had some fun fantasy moments, right, with Fields. But
Sure.
As an NFL quarterback, it stunted his growth and really messed long term. So I wonder with Nagy and Dart as a combination, like, yeah, you're going to get some rushing upside, but like, is he going to be capped where he feels like a player like, oh, he could be quarterback 3? I just don't have those feelings.
You're doing this based off vibes.
I gave you some numbers, but I've kind of been against Dart this whole season, which last year I was all about it.
All right, let me give you a vibe check, okay? So we know who the play caller is in Matt Nagy. Do you know who the pass game coordinator is / quarterbacks coach?
It's someone we don't want, right?
It's Brian Callahan.
No.
Giro.
No.
Giro, Greg Roman, is on this staff as a senior offensive assistant. So from a surround Jaxson Dart with high pace, up tempo.
Wait, did Jim negotiate this?
I'm sure
Jim,
he did.
Jim said my buddy Greg, my drinking buddy
Greg. He
Greg.
went to his brother. He's like, someone's got to take the fall. John, you got to help me out. I got to fire my guy Giro, and we got to give him a cushy landing.
So from that vibes perspective, it's not ideal. And then you throw in the Malik Neighbors recovery for the short-term outlook in the first 4 to 8 weeks. Like, it's tough to see it on we mentioned that with like Jayden Daniels if Terry goes down, or with Lamar if Zay goes down. Like, they have Darnell Mooney, Darius Slayton, Calvin Austin, Odell Beckham, Jalen Hyatt, Braxton Berrios, Juju Smith-Schuster's on this team. Like, they do not have wide receiver talent outside of Malik Neighbors. And sure, Isaiah Likely's a fun tight end sleeper this year, but it's like, man, to have that top 5 type of ceiling outcome happen for you, you need that passing, like Mike said. I just don't think we're going to see that this year. So I love Dart's profile for fantasy in the game that we play, but like Kyle said, I think there are going to be some growing pains this year.
If you want, or I'd say if you can put stock into it, you can bypass it. I will just present it. When we were talking to Scattaboo and Dart, we're trying to do the fantasy football questions, which you get the PR answer. But we were talking about pass catchers, and the only name that came up was Isaiah Likely. Dart could have gone to bat for this. Hey, while we wait for Neighbors, we got Slayton, we got No one got mentioned except for Isaiah Likely.
He doesn't know if any of these wide receivers are going to make the roster.
And on
That's
top
fair.
of that, he said, he was like, we got Isaiah, and it was, I need to go back. It's almost like he forgot his last name.
He did pause.
It did seem like that. I saw it. I think he did.
Maybe him bringing him up was a bad thing. I don't know.
We got that Isaiah guy. What's his last name?
Yeah, what HR? They introduced him to me. Yeah, no, Isaiah Likely. Yeah, what a bunch of random pass catchers that half of them do the same thing. Calvin Austin and Darnell Mooney are the exact same player, by the way. They're the same dude. Jalen Hyatt, poor guy, pour one out. So last little valuation question on Jaxson Dart, because we have him ranked as a quarterback one.
They have Berrios?
Yeah, they have Braxton Berrios. We have him ranked as a quarterback one. Would you feel comfortable in a super flex with Jaxson Dart being your quarterback one?
No.
Close, and we can flip real easy to that's a 100% yes, but at this moment of time of the market-based game, I would say no.
Yep. I'm there with you. And it's also, we have startup rankings. If you're doing a startup draft tomorrow, this is what our startup rankings say. There's also the difference of if you drafted Jaxson Dart last year, you were not drafting him likely to be your quarterback one for your team.
Oh, if you've got him as your quarterback two or something like that, I mean, that is,
yes.
Now you're doing, cartwheels.
Now we're feeling it.
Yeah, that's a good way to phrase it for people. It's like, hey, just realize what he is. We're not telling you to trade him away. We're not saying he's bad. We're just bringing up some red flags about this year and red flags about Matt Nagy because we've had them for almost a decade, if we're honest.
These dudes just keep getting jobs.
They know people. That's what Giro did. It's I know people. Greg Roman.
I hate it.
Greg Roman's there. All right, let's take a quick break. Talk about a couple more tiers. All right, on to tier 4, which is quarterback 12 and 13. It's a pretty small tier. I'm calling it the tiny tier of 26-year-old quarterbacks. It's just Bo Nix and Brock Purdy.
Okay.
Who I like both of these quarterbacks. I like where we have them ranked. I would be very happy to have them as my quarterback too, because they're at the age, they're part of winning teams. They just feel like good, safe quarterbacks. I don't have a ton to say about their skills. I don't know what their ceiling outcome actually is. I don't know if either of these guys could be top 5 in a season, but I like their situations. I like actually the upgrade for Bo Nix that Sean Payton's out of the way and hopefully Davis Webb calls some stuff, but both of these quarterbacks, if you have them in a super flex, you should feel very strong about them. Betz, any thoughts on Bo or Brock?
I think Brock is one of my favorite undervalued QB1 candidates year in and year out. I mean,
I'm with
last year, I think he was, I have to go back and double check this, but I'm pretty sure he was top 5 in fantasy points per dropback, even though it was a frustrating season where he had all the injuries and stuff. On a per dropback basis, he's always up there with the best in the league, which is, for him, we don't picture him as a prolific rusher, but he will run at the goal line too. So you're getting kind of an underrated rushing profile here with Brock Purdy, and we know the efficiency in the scheme will be there as long as Kyle Shanahan is the play caller. So I love Brock Purdy. When you can go, elite skill position player in round 1 of a startup, and then maybe get 2 of these guys in kind of this tier and the next tier, the next couple rounds, that feels like an awesome start to lay the foundation for a team. So I, of course, would love all the quarterbacks ahead of these guys, but if you're talking about, give me a guy that's a quarterback 2 in startup ADP that will finish inside the top 12, I think Brock Purdy has to be at the top of the list.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement. The way I look at it is, you always want pieces of Kyle Shanahan's offense. It's historically that has been a very strong bet. And then when he finds the right match, and then that player has been given some experience for it, you absolutely get production. Never forget. I just lost the stat mark. But there Matt Ryan, Kyle, you may be aware of who Matt Ryan is.
One of the greatest.
4,944 yards, 38 touchdowns. Now that team had a Julio. I don't think the 49ers have a Julio on the roster, but you have I think an interesting conglomeration of, the end near his end, end is near. There we go. Had a little backwards of Mike Evans. Same is said for George Kittle. And then does one of Pearsall or Stribling work out? Because if one of those two players works out, I think that Brock Purdy has a ceiling season in there somewhere.
It's kind of like he can be the sum of all the parts of the offense. And at the end of the day, you look up and it's like, this guy, I mean, he was in the MVP conversation 2 years ago, right? At the very end, and Lamar took it from him. But yeah, he just feels solid. And Bo Nix was in the third tier last year. So he actually dropped down a little bit, but I still feel fine about his overall outlook. And adding Jalen Waddle helps me feel so much better about his outlook and where he's going. So stable guys there. The next tier is tier 5, and I'm just calling them undervalued because Dak Prescott and Jordan Love are two really good quarterbacks. I think that's the main thing that I want to say is I actually think they're good at the game. Love's issue is he just doesn't have the same volume that Dak has. He's just hyper efficient. And that's kind of the question. I know, Betz, you've been doing a deep dive on every single team. You just put out a training camp article, a monster one. Is Matt LaFleur going to actually let this guy throw? Because they were 28th in pass rate last year, and that just continues to kill.
Let Love cook, baby.
For real.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. You need him to be pushed, and I like when he is dropping back to pass, he's one of the most efficient in the league. You have Tucker Kraft, you have Christian Watson, two guys that have been so efficient on a per route basis. You have that. The only variable that I'll say that I could see LaFleur being no, we're not going to unleash him, is if Golden flops and Reed can't play in 2 wide receiver sets, then you almost have to be a conservative run first efficiency type offense. But at the same time, I think the Packers defense could have some struggles this year. They lose their defensive coordinator. Michael Parsons is coming off a late season ACL injury. I think there's an outcome here where Jordan Love surprises a lot of people. I know a couple years ago he had that really prolific fantasy season. I think another one of those is coming in the somewhat near future, but it's just hard to predict. So this is kind of why these guys fall into this tier for us, where it's there are top 12 outcomes that will happen. They're hard to predict, and so you feel so much better about these guys as your quarterback 2 or 3 if you're top heavy there, that you can plug them in the right matchup and you'll get numbers. But yeah, we do need Matt LaFleur to kind of unleash him here to have that true ceiling.
I kind of like builds. If you're doing a startup, let's say you get one of the elites, then you can get to the 3rd round and find one of these guys as your QB2 and just crush it. So I think Dak and Love are going to end up staying here, though. That's the problem is I have a hard time elevating them. Dak because of his age, Love because I feel like the offense doesn't want to be high flying. Will it ever be? Will he see 600 pass attempts?
Probably not.
That sucks. That sucks because he could crush.
I think it's a good place to have Love because there is a chance that the offense shifts. These things do happen, and then Dak, you can't rank him higher when you're talking startup because he's 33 years old. I mean, Dak. I bet Dak could play at a high level for at least 4 more years if he wants to, and that's the direction that the Cowboys choose to go. So he is super undervalued for what he could actually represent to your team.
Yeah, if you're a contender and you want to get a QB2 to take you over the top, Dak to me is that guy this year that won't cost you an arm and a leg. And if you have Mahomes, you can get Dak plus if you trade away Mahomes. And if as a contender, I would be really interested in doing that. So yeah, I think we all agree Dak is one of those undervalued guys, even though he is 33 years old. And when you see it in a startup, you don't love that. But if you are competing this year, he's a target for me.
All right, let's do one more tier. I'm calling this one shot calling play callers. Okay, because you kind of have to shoot your shot on what you think is going to happen with these teams. It's Fernando Mendoza with the Raiders and Kubiak. It's Tyler Shough with the Saints and Kellen Moore. And then Baker Mayfield with Zach Robinson. And it doesn't feel great when I say Kellen Moore and Kubiak and then I throw in Robinson. It just feels like a step down. But I think we all think Baker can be better than what he was last year.
Yeah. Well, the injuries being released by Baker Mayfield. Source. The source was a really good, reliable one. It's funny. Like, we have him here. I think, fantasy players and NFL players and like NFL teams are just not 100% sure what to do with Baker. Like the fact that we are where we are today of this recording, where an extension has not been given, and it seemed like that was just inevitable. Before the beginning of last year, is like, man, I wonder what the Baker contract extension is going to look like. And now you're one more year. If he gets beat up again and plays bad, Tampa could easily just say, no, we don't want to keep doing this. We're going to do a full reset, and thank you for your service. And then Baker has to go find another starting opportunity, which he may or not be able to do.
Yeah, that's fair. And until you get that contract, I think you're going to have those question marks. So he is tough, but I think we all agree the outlook for the Bucs this year from a health perspective will be way better. Like, Baker was hurt. The offensive line was shuffling all season. You had Mike Evans miss a huge chunk of the season. Obviously, he's gone, but Chris Godwin was injured the entire season last year. Jalen McMillan missed half the year. Like, the list goes on and on. Bucky Irving, like, their offense was in shambles all year, and they're just trying to piece it together, and we saw them kind of falter down the stretch. They're one of those teams that I think could remind us of how good they are. But I know Kyle puts some, negative connotation on Zach Robinson. I don't know. I don't know how to think about him. Like, I was encouraged by some of the stuff he did with like Drake London in the red zone when they move him into the slot and just kind of create some mismatches. But yeah, I think the book is still out on him. So we'll see.
Yeah. I think when I look at this tier, Mendoza, Shough, Mayfield, it's hard for me to paint a picture that Baker like recaptures the same magic that he had before. And
Sure.
And so he feels, stable too. We'll see what he is a year from now. I look at Mendoza and Shough, go, man, those guys could like jump 2 tiers a year from now. Like, it's
Yes.
And with Shough, I think we're all in on how he plays the game and Kellen Moore as the play caller, the pace of play. Like that, I love that style of play. I was going through the exercise with Mendoza of like, okay, I don't know how many starts he's going to get. Number 1 picks usually get starts by week 4. That's like the going rate. But like what I need him to do to jump a tier is like this team to win 7 games. Or let's say Mendoza jumps in at the end of the season, he wins 4 of his final 7 starts, something like that. And this team is exciting, and we love Clint Kubiak. Is he going to run the way that Shough's going to run, though? And I would say probably not as a rookie. They're probably just going to protect him, give him some easy stuff. But like Shough could continue to run at a rate where he's like 400 yards a year, 500 yards a year. And that's like wild, high-end outcomes where he could end up being more than just a QB1.
Shough's an offensive line away from I would just everything I have, I would just shove it in the middle of the table.
If you put Shough on the Bucs instead of Baker, because the Bucs have a good offensive line.
Right. Yeah, but I like...
You like the weapons?
I like Olave and Tyson more than I like. Olave is going to get an extension. He's going to be on the Saints for the duration of the Jordan Tyson years on the rookie contract. So, yeah, Tampa does have a very strong offensive line. And it's not that the Saints is bad, but it's just more in the middle, where if it was an elite offensive line, he would be ranked so high for me.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you saw Mike Brandon Thorne. He does a lot of offensive line work. He's one of the best in the business. He just came out with his rankings. He is higher than consensus on the Saints offensive line. He had him in the top 10 this year. So,
okay.
You're talking about pushing the chips all in.
Let me get the chips ready.
There you go, brother.
It's a fun place to be in when you add a top 10 pick at wide receiver. It's one thing when we're talking about Olave and he has this monster end of the year run. Finally gets the long touchdowns. It's like, okay, fine. This is the Olave we all thought. Then you add in somebody that I think Tyson is like, and I've always been an Olave guy. I think Tyson is more talented than Olave and has a higher ceiling long-term in the NFL. Like, I want this defense to be bad. I want this team to just have to chuck it, him to throw it 35, 40 times a game. That's probably not what's going to happen.
They're a solid defense. This is how I see it going into this year.
What's interesting is Kellen Moore, I was doing a deep dive on just how the offense works, but like he never throws to the running back position. It's never been higher than like 22nd in the league in target share. So like If they get a condensed target share of just Tyson Olave,
That
then
sounds fun.
you transform into an offense that can just roll like the Bengals or like the Cowboys. You have 2 elite wide receivers and you just see what can happen. So if Shough is the engine of that, what's his ceiling this year? Put a number on it. 2026, Tyler Shough, what's the highest outcome for him?
I won't go super hot takey, so I'll say top 7.
I was going to say 8.
I was going to say
8.
6.
All right.
Okay.
There you go. 6 to 8.
It's top 5.
Is you
Quarterback 1.
Yeah. It was basically going to see which of us actually was more bullish on the player.
It's top 5.
Yeah, 101 in startups, right?
Loud and clear. We heard you. We heard you, Mike.
All right, that's going to do it for our quarterback rankings. Make sure you head on to ultimatedraftkit.com and you can see all of those rankings before you. We'll see you again next week.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. If you want to take your dynasty skills to the next level, check out thefantasyfootballers.com.